Hey guys, Pilot Geek here, and this is the Engwe X24. So the X24 is a bit odd. Thankfully, it's a lot less odd than last year's X26, as this new series of bikes helps to fix a lot of last generation's shortcomings. And while it still has quite a few different odd design decisions, I was surprised at just how capable and practical this bike really is. So let's get to the unboxing, and then take a deeper look into just what makes the Engwe X series so unique. The X24 is a beastly bike at around 100 pounds, so you may need an assistant to help lift and handle the bike during assembly. A small box inside the main box contains parts such as pedals, a toolkit of dubious quality, and a single 48-volt 3-amp charger. The seat is also boxed separately to prevent damage, and is one of pretty nice quality. Each Engwe manual seems to get more detailed, and this one does a pretty good job of showing the assembly steps. It even goes into depth on how to adjust the display's more advanced settings. The bike is protected by a minimal amount of custom-cut foam and cardboard blocks, leading to less waste and a quicker unboxing than usual. They seem to have served their purpose well, as the only damage to the bike I could find was this small gouge on the kickstand mount, which gets mostly covered by the bolts and washers anyways. The next step was to remove the dummy axle from the fork to fit the front wheel, making sure to align the brake into the caliper, after which I could flip the bike over to continue work on it. The handlebars clamp in with 4 bolts, and I take a moment to ensure that the controls and bar angle seem right for my height and stance on the bike before tightening it. The rear seat simply slides onto the frame, with a single set screw to secure it. The main seat uses a more standard clamping rail, with a single bolt used to tighten it after finding the correct angle. Finally, I spin the metal pedals onto each crank arm and secure the headlight and taillight before I'm ready to ride. Maybe I'm just getting used to unboxing bikes, but this seemed to be the easiest bike to set up I've done so far. The X24 is a very beefy looking bike. Seriously, this thing is an absolute unit. I've had multiple comments from random people about how it looks like it's serious business, and it feels just as serious as it looks. From the 24 by 4-inch fat tires to the oversized dual rear suspension, it has quite a large presence. This, coupled with the unique looking frame design, makes for a bike that is sure to turn heads. It's not all for looks though, as the bike packs dual 48-volt batteries for a total of 29.2 amp hours of capacity. With a motor capable of 1200 watts peak power, getting you up to 31 miles an hour top speed, and an advertised range of 54 miles at max speed or 149 miles in eco mode, the bike can ride both fast and far. Couple that with the 180mm brake rotors and hydraulic calipers, and you have a very fast and capable machine at your control. Speaking of control, the handlebars are very wide, offering plenty of leverage for whipping around the large fat tires. The included grips are very sleek looking black leather, which I found to be quite comfortable, with a wide flat profile to distribute your weight more evenly on the bars. Working our way across the bars, we have this odd left-hand throttle with horn and display controls. Towards the middle of the handlebars, you find the bright color LCD display with lots of settings to play around with. Finally, on the right, we have our Shimano paddle shifter, with each press clicking up or down through the 8-speed gear set. I have heard complaints about the stock derailleur, which is indeed a bit lacking. Engwe used a 6/7-speed derailleur on an 8-speed freewheel, and it struggles to hit all the gears. After tons of fiddling with it, I was able to get it shifting well enough, but this really should have been upgraded to a better system, more suitable for this kind of bike. Likewise, I do wish they would have opted for a better headlight and taillight, as these don't look quite as distinctive as something like the M20's headlights. And while the headlight seems bright enough, the taillight's actually really dim. I'm not a huge fan of the wimpy sounding horn either. Cars won't hear it, and it's a lot less friendly sounding than a bell for pedestrians. In contrast to the average looking headlights, the frame on this bike is extraordinarily distinctive looking, with its triple shock rear swing arm, and the quality of the finish is top notch. The frame is quite a bit more sleek than previous bikes, and it almost looks like it's molded from a single piece. Now I don't know if it is, or if they just grind all the welds smooth, but the bike looks basically seamless. I also appreciate the inclusion of some of the additional accent paint and logos, which helps to make the frame look a bit more lively than the old versions. Like a lot of Engwe's other bikes, the X24 also folds, using a locking mechanism and hinge to reveal the secondary battery. You could theoretically fold it up for storage or travel, but due to the size and weight of the bike, I'm not sure how practical that would actually be. The bike feels very solidly built and extremely rigid, but I did have a bit of a rattle from the factory. I added a little bit of foam to the front battery, which made the bike almost completely rattle-free and silent over bumps and jumps. One of the most prominent odd design features is the triple shock swing arm. The rear wheel is suspended by dual shock absorbers, which themselves are mounted on a swing arm sprung by a mid-mounted shock. The dual gas shocks are extremely oversized for a bike like this, being sized more like a moped shock, and are fully adjustable in preload and gas pressure. The mid-frame shock, however, is a cheaper unit, and in testing, I'm not sure it really does much at all. I think they designed it like this just to brag about having more shocks than any other bike on the market. The front fork has reportedly been improved since the last revision, which was often described as too soft. The improved fork now has adjustments for damping strength and preload, which is extremely helpful in dialing in your preferred ride quality. In practice, the bike rides very nicely over bumpy roads and trails, and can even handle some smaller jumps I found while riding. The large tires and aggressive suspension may make it tempting to take this bad boy down some aggressive downhill trails, but I will tell you right now, do not try that. While it does use very large shocks and beefy components, this bike is also an absolute unit at around 100 pounds, and is very likely to break things like the hinge or forks if subjected to a lot of abuse. Realistically, it's designed to provide a comfortable ride for light to medium trail riding. Ride quality is great whether on-road or on gravel trails, and despite the heavy weight, it can still be nimble around corners, soaking up minor bumps with ease, and even the occasional tiny jumps. Of course, what good is great suspension if the seat itself is uncomfortable? Luckily, the primary seat on the X24 is much more standard than something like the M20, which definitely makes for a better fit for taller riders. The extreme range of adjustment means there's no way you'll be too tall for this thing. The stock seat was comfortable enough, though I did opt to swap it out for a slightly more firm saddle out of personal preference. The seat on the back looks like it might be useful for a passenger, but I found it to just be kind of a strange addition. There's really no good place to put your feet while riding that feels stable enough to be safe or comfortable. That is, unless you want to try pedaling the bike from all the way back there. Because of this, I wound up just throwing a cargo bag on the back instead. I opted for this official Engwe bag, but the frame was too fat to wrap the Velcro straps around, so I punched some holes in the bottom of the bag, along with some 3D printed clamps to mount directly to the screw holes on the cargo rack. I love the way this turned out, and I think the bike not only looks much better with a cargo bag, but it's so much more practical. I can even fit my full-size laptop into the expanding saddlebags. The 24-inch tires on this bike do feel quite large, and I can see why they opted for the smaller 24-inch tires versus the old X26, as it reduces the standover height by quite a bit. I was happy to see Engwe opted to mount these big tires on spokes instead of mag rims, which should save a little bit of weight while also being a bit more durable and comfortable to ride at the expense of looking slightly less cool. Unfortunately, the smaller tires don't fix the size issues completely, as the reach is still quite far. So smaller riders may still struggle with the X24 unless you fit an angled bar riser to bring the bars a little bit closer. At 6 feet tall, I could probably ride the larger X26 just fine, but the X24 is just a little bit more practical to get on and off of. The name of the tire size is also a little bit deceiving, as in reality, the outside diameter of a 24-inch fat tire is really more similar to that of a standard 26-inch tire. The bike is similar in dimensions to my 26-inch beach cruiser, and just for some other comparisons, here's the X24 next to the Engwe M20, the Engwe C20, and a 700C road bike. Taking the X24 out to the street, this bike is fast. It is an absolute riot at 32 miles an hour. While the M20 kept up in a 25 mile an hour zone, this bike can straight up break the law, at least in sport mode. Normal top speed is around 27 to 28 miles an hour, but engaging sport mode gives you a 3-minute burst of speed to help keep up on a busy street. I know there are bikes out there that can demolish this thing's top speed, but it just feels plenty fast, at least for my needs. I was excited to see the huge chainring paired with this bike as well, meaning that I didn't have to worry about ghost pedaling, and I feel like I can actually contribute a good amount of my own power even at high speeds. This means that first gear is a little bit tall for my liking, but the motor helps make up for it with its impressive 70 Nm of torque to effortlessly pull me up steep hills and start from a standstill. I find the acceleration to be a good balance between feeling smooth while still feeling powerful enough to have some authority to it. One of the most important fixes from the older X26 is the battery management. The front battery used to require complete removal to charge, but it now has a much more sensible plug in the side of the frame to allow in-bike charging. While the bike still has this kind of goofy looking tether cable for the seat post battery, no longer do you have to manually swap the cable between batteries to use them, as there's now an internal battery combiner to automatically balance and run the packs in parallel. Not only is this a lot more convenient, but running the packs in parallel provides a boost in usable current for the upgraded motor. I've only charged this bike twice since I got it, and I've gone just under 200 miles on it at an average speed of around 16 miles an hour, so lower assist levels can absolutely get you around 100 miles of range per charge. I was excited to see that the inclusion of many custom settings are here, including the ability to set your own pedal assist levels. Thank goodness, as this is my biggest problem with so many e-bikes, and after I dialed the settings to my own liking, it feels so smooth to ride. This was especially good news as it meant I didn't have to use the odd left-hand throttle as much. So overall, how do I feel about the X24? Well, overall, I feel like this bike is a really big step up, both from the more budget-oriented models and the previous generation X26. From the quality of the frame and welds to the improved stock components, it just feels a lot more premium. I always wanted an X26, but could never justify it due to the weird battery quirks, so I'm really glad they finally fixed the previous generation's design flaws. I did wind up adding my usual accessories, such as a bar end mirror, but the rest of the bike really did feel pretty adequate in stock form. If you're interested in purchasing an X24, X26, or any of Engwe's other models, be sure to check out the links in the description. The X24 is already a great value at $18.99, but you can currently get the bike for $100 off throughout the early bird specials. Even if you're not sure about buying the bike, you can enter your email to win various prizes, ranging from bike accessories to even winning one of the new Engwe X series bikes. As usual, I will probably include a follow-up video with any other additional findings after extended riding, or any additional modifications I decide to do to the bike. So be sure to hit that subscribe button to check that out. As always, thanks for watching, and I hope you enjoyed my take on the Engwe X24.